for us tonight to give you an update. A lot has happened since we were here all the way back in April. So it's been a very exciting process this summer. At that time, the general contractor was just beginning to secure the site, get all the perimeter fencing up. A new access ramp was being installed on the east end of the parking lot to kind of control all the construction traffic. That had been put in place, which has been very successful. Underground work was beginning, electric service, storm sewer lines were being put in, and footings were just kind of beginning along the south side of the gymnasium. And that was about the extent of where we left off with you guys, I think, here back in April. So, obviously, you will recall that we ran into some difficult existing soils that we had to address and do some investigation on the north side of the gymnasium in particular. And that was at the onset of excavations. A lot of this was discovered. So, although the area north of the existing gymnasium was the worst part of that condition, which I think we had some preliminary estimates for what we call the Area C on the north side, it tended to kind of work its way around to the east side of the building and also into the area for the field house and the pool area. So it's been an ongoing kind of game of patience to wait for all the numbers to be tallied on what that true cut and fill ratio was. So, and we've received some of that here. So, insult to injury, I guess, we did discover a little bit of rock when we get into the natatorium space where the new pool will be. There's a couple of elements for the pool. There's a surge tank and a pump pit that are adjacent to the pool that are accessories to it. They're about at the deepest elevation of the excavation. And that was some of the things that they had to put in early. As they got down to that level, we ran into some rock. And it's, Todd, you can kind of attest to the substantial quality of the rock. It was kind of a cousin to granite, and so they were really having to do a lot of hammering to get it out. So had to work through some of that. And there were, as we had the original bid for the project, we did have line items in the bid for both soils corrections and rock excavation. So they were accounted for. Again, it's an unknown condition, so it's a matter of discovering that over time through the process of the project. One last thing, I guess, we also worked through a lot of investigation over this mysterious storm line, if you recall, that kind of routed from the south side of the kind of academic wing over across the front face of the gymnasium and then headed north to the northeast corner of the gymnasium. And at the tail end of that, there was a sump pit that was kind of unknown capacity or capability, I guess, what its real function was. And so there was quite a bit of investigation. And as we got into a lot of the excavation, it turned out that there was quite a bit of percolation coming into that system, and ultimately needed to vet that out with all of our consultants and figure out what was going to be the best process moving forward. And I think we've handled a lot of that through the first change order here as some of those line items to get that resolved. So we've come a long way since then. Site work, just a quick recap on just kind of recent things since June. 90% of the excavation has been complete to date. All areas have been filled with suitable materials, and it's including the buildup of the easterly portion of the field house footprint, as we had determined to maintain just a single grade level. There's about a 5-foot drop by the time we extend the building out that far. So a lot of that's been set in place now. All of the demolished paving that was like the apron coming out of the front of the gymnasium and some of the existing parking lot has all been stockpiled to the east. And currently, I think you were at the progress meeting last week, they were going to have a rock crusher on site here within the next week, and they're going to start to recycle a lot of that material to use as sub-base for the, particularly the field house, I believe. That's where they're going to be using some of that. So, let's see. Parking impact, I guess, as far as the site. Some of the upcoming processes that are going to be happening involve some erection of the steel trusses for the natatorium space. And so there's quite a bit of stockpiling of materials both for the field house and for the pool as far as mechanical equipment and some of the structural steel that's currently inhabiting the gravel lot. That's going to kind of develop over time as a lot of these materials are being used on the project. It's going to be a little bit of a give and take process on how much of the gravel lot is actually allotted to either the contractor or for school use. In particular, I guess, as they start to put those big trusses up over the natatorium here in the next few weeks, we are going to utilize a small portion of the parking lot just south of the new natatorium footprint, and they're actually going to fabricate a couple of pieces and then crane them into place. But again, that parking space will be returned. And I think it was discovered that current parking usage and everything, we were well within the parameters to accommodate everybody. It'll just be a little bit minor inconvenience, hopefully. So, and then I guess as we get around to the north side of the gymnasium where we had the really bad dirt, all of that had been replaced. Concrete block walls are 90% complete for that area. That's where the new locker room spaces for the stadium are going to inhabit. And so that is continuing to be completed, as well as some of the structural steel, the steel beams and joists to hold the roof, and some of the larger mechanical units for the project are going to be installed relatively soon. Got the field house. All of the foundations for the field house are in, and they just recently finished the tie beams that are part of the structural system for holding the structural bays. And so we foresee in the very near future that they're going to be starting some of the craning of the large structural bays for the field house portion. And I believe their intent is to use a couple of cranes, and they'll be working their way from the west side of the building and work their way to the east.
There'll be a crane on each side of the building, the north side and the south side of the field house. They'll lay out the material in the area that will be the field house, and they'll tandem lift it into position and work from the west to the east.
Yeah, the span on these are about 176 feet, so it's a little bit of an ordeal for one crane to handle it. So it's going to be kind of an exciting process. I think they've watched that. And again, the building's about 300 feet long, so as much as development, I guess, of the natatorium space is really given as far as just kind of visual development of the project, I think that's going to be another big impact for the public to witness, so it's very exciting. The new entry lobby, which is east of the gymnasium, as that work continues, we're essentially having to do some demolition of the original vestibule that's on that side. Part of that work is to shore up kind of an open column bay. A lot of that has been accomplished, and they've provided some additional structural steel that will both support that new lobby space and also help support the existing wrestling space on the second floor. And I guess finally, the south area where the new pool is going. Again, this is probably undergoing the most visible transformation right now as we've gotten out of the ground. One portion of that development is the new elevator for the project, and that was one of the early things that needed to be accomplished. So we've got the new elevator shaft installed. It's essentially part of the existing gymnasium footprint, and so there's quite a bit of technical challenges, I guess, to get all of that installed. Some cutting of structural deck and just the logistics of getting some of their heavy equipment in there to bring materials in. And so that's been complete, and you'll also see obviously a lot of the concrete block for the support walls for locker room spaces, mechanical areas are in place. And that was in anticipation of all the precast that have come. And that's probably the most visible, the high pieces of the precast that create the shape for the natatorium. It's being left open on the south side, and I believe maybe we mentioned this before. The intent is that a lot of this will be put in place with that south wall of the pool left open so that they can maintain access in to actually dig for the pool and bring all those elements in, and then finally seal it up on that very south